Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. If you are new around here, every single day at 1 p.m. UK time, we release an update just like this one to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And we will be talking about the broader markets towards the end of the video, the Dixie specifically, and the kind of gravity that it has on the markets, and the fact that we have seen the Dixie really go in the direction we've wanted it to support the risk asset classes. So we will be saving that and the more technical side of things towards the end of the video. We're really going to be kicking the video off with some huge news out of Latin America in regards to the Argentinian election and the winner of the Argentinian election, who happens to view central banks in the same way that I imagine a lot of Bitcoiners and people that got into the crypto space view central banks. And he also has a very interesting view on Bitcoin, which we're going to be exploring to kick the video off. How is this going to affect Bitcoin? How is this going to affect the broader crypto space? Are we starting to see the Bitcoinization of countries out there? You know, certainly if you look at Latin America, you had obviously El Salvador, which adopted Bitcoin as a money essentially. And now potentially you may see Argentina go down a similar path. Now, I'm very torn on Bitcoin as money. I think Bitcoin is a store of value. I think it's proven to be that. But can it practically be used as money? I am not convinced. I'm on the fence, I would say. I think if you look at what happened in the 1920s, a large part of why the Great Recession or the Great Depression, not recession, it was a depression by all accounts, not a recession, was so traumatic, had a lot to do with the fact that we were on a gold standard. So does gold work as a practical money? Will Bitcoin work as a practical money? This perhaps deserves its entirely own video, which we may be dropping for you this week. We may not be. Let's kick the video off by taking a look at the events and what's taken place. So this individual here has won the Argentinian election, and he is very famous in the Bitcoin space and the crypto space as a Bitcoin ambassador almost. And this idea that Bitcoin is money and we're returning with Bitcoin to what money was. And I want to dive in. We're not going to play it, the actual clip, but we will be reading the subtitles, so I'll do my best. But Bitcoin, people talk about Bitcoins in the media all the time. We don't know how Bitcoin works, but there are people that says that could be a monetary alternative. He's then asked, do you believe that it's possible to discuss this in Argentina? The president's response was, let's see, what is the point? The point is that the first thing we have to understand is that central bank is a scam. He then goes on to say it is a mechanism by which politicians cheat. To the good people with the inflationary tax. Inflation, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely a tax on everybody. He then goes on to say what Bitcoin is representing is return of money to its original creator, the private sector. Money is a private invention. In order to be used to solve problems, for example, in bartering economies, the double coincidence of wants and invisibility, then paper money appeared to solve portability. Actually, you had different currencies, linen, wheat, salt, where it came from the word salary. Hence comes the superstition that salt falls off the table. And then that was evolving, and the currencies that the people chose were silver for small transactions and the gold for the bigger ones. Then, because back then it was very dangerous to move the gold, people used to deposit it. People used to deposit the gold and then get an exchange, a receipt. And then in the year 1445, in the first Genovese Congress, the states appropriated the exclusivity to issue the money. That's the legal tender, which is a key point because the legal tender allows the politicians to scam you with the inflationary tax. Bitcoin has an algorithm that one day it will reach a certain amount and there is no more. And it can compete with other currencies. In fact, it competes with Ethereum and others. Not really sure. I think Bitcoin's very separate from Ethereum and they're both trying to do different things, but hey ho. And what is the good thing? It's the return of private money. But what is the problem? The problem is that the government will not give up the legal tender. Because with the legal tender, they can scam you with the inflationary tax. The Bitcoin is the natural reaction against the central bankers scamming and to make the money private again. And the flip side is that the thieving politicians are not going to allow you to go against the legal tender. In economies with high inflation, the scam problem is bigger. That's why, as I suggest, you can propose to close the central bank. Pretty insane, to be honest. What now the Prime Minister President of Argentina is actually saying in regards to Bitcoin. You know, he's also very against central banks. He's also, I think when he won, he did this kind of video where he was ripping off things like central banks, throw them away, inflation, throw it away, all this kind of stuff. And is Bitcoin going to become legal tender in, it already is in parts of Latin America, in Argentina. It's very interesting. It's a very, you know, we've always said Bitcoin's been nothing short of a success. It's got this far. Are the dominoes now starting to fall? Certainly in countries where you have extremely high inflation. You know, we look at Turkey, for example. We look at Argentina. We look at places like Lebanon. It almost would serve them from a store of value point of view to actually adopt the likes of Bitcoin. However, I am not sure that it's going to solve all the problems. I'm also a little bit worried about what happens in the event of a crisis. One way that central banks, I'm against central banks. I think they are, you know, money is the very tool that's used to enslave people in this day and age. It's also the tool that's used to, you know, it's used as a weapon by all accounts, and the central banks have that control over it, and the politicians. But if you look at what central banks do in times of hardship, that they cause these big booms in markets and then these busts. So there's definitely an argument for getting rid of them based on that, or coming up with some sort of better system. And maybe you wouldn't have those booms and busts if it wasn't for central banks. But in a real bust, the reason the Great Depression was so bad was because the central banks couldn't react potentially in the same way they did in 2008. So, and how they react is by inflating the money supply and stimulating to get out of that situation. You can't do that with Bitcoin. But then again, if Bitcoin was the standard from the start, maybe you wouldn't have these big boom and bust that are caused by the central bank. So it is a three-dimensional argument when it comes to Bitcoin as money. There are, of course, credit lines and things like this you can build around Bitcoin, using it as the kind of store, and you could maybe stimulate via that. But it's a fascinating debate, and it's very interesting that you now have the president of Argentina that's actually a pro-Bitcoiner, and you can see Bitcoin reacted initially off this news. Bitcoin jumps on Argentina's pro-Bitcoin candidate, Javier Milei, winning the election. And you can see, of course, just to round this up and finish this, Jim Cramer predicted that Argentina will never adopt Bitcoin as a standard. Well, we will see. This came out yesterday. Let's see if the Cramer effect works. On to a little bit of crypto news. Santander have recently launched Bitcoin and Ethereum trading in Switzerland. This was big news, in my opinion. Santander's private bank's recent innovation to introduce Bitcoin and Ethereum trading for clients with Swiss accounts marks a significant milestone in the integration of cryptocurrencies into traditional banking systems. This move by Santander, a venerable institution in the financial sector, reflects the evolving landscape of investments and the growing acceptance of digital assets. According to an international announcement, Santander's Private Banking International, a division of the Spanish financial giant Banco Santander, has begun offering trading and investing services in major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically, but not exclusively to. This is huge news, by the way. Come and check out allincrypto.com. We are dedicated to keeping you up to date on the news surrounding the crypto space, not just via these videos, but also on website format. Bitcoin although it may have seen a little bit of a positive reaction, it is running into its first real spate of volume. And we have said, actually, you may need a bit of a longer pullback at this area before then pushing on to higher ground. And the altcoin market is doing exceptionally well. The altcoin market is well and truly broken out. So is the cryptocurrency market as a whole. Certainly something that we've looked at in quite a lot of detail. So we are bullish. Yesterday, we did a fantastic video on recapping on why, from a macroeconomic point of view, we are bullish. It's very simple. It's to do with interest rates and the historical correlation that they have with markets. The stock market, US stock market, gold, for example. And actually then we looked at those assets against Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has broken out against them. So if they're going to do well, likely Bitcoin and crypto as a whole is going to do well. And largely a lot of this is centered around, of course, the dollar, which we started speculating was going to start to roll back on October the 2nd with the close of the weekly candle that we got after an aggressive uptrend. We did say, actually, this could be a pivotal point in the trend. You've since broken down and broken market structure. The real question for me is if we've got a bullish outlook on the next 12 months, what's the dollar going to do? The dollar is likely going to have to see further downside and at least come and retest these lows and maybe even find its way to the lower band of what is a macro channel that would largely support our thesis the markets do well into a crash. Crash is likely going to occur around support here. We will see. Definitely a market to watch, and we know why, because of the correlation between the dollar and, of course, risk assets that you can kind of term with Bitcoin. Bitcoin started to run into trouble on dollar strength, dollar weakness. It bottomed out up until the 30K, where it ran into a little bit of resistance. Subsequently, the dollar was doing well. The dollar starting to roll at this point really saw Bitcoin sort of pick its feet up. So there's a real correlation here. You know, this is likely to continue, in my opinion. You are in a sort of festive period for the markets. Markets do typically do very well in November and December, and actually going into the start of January. You know, you've got a very bullish time ahead of you for the markets. Lots of people go away, which means there's less liquidity. It doesn't take much to push up. And if you've got that positive kind of backdrop, things will do well. So by all accounts, we are bulls on the markets, not just Bitcoin, crypto, gold, and most things in between. We even think debt could get a bit of a bid, at least for a while. And housing, you know, we're seeing a lot of data come out that's actually suggesting a stronger economy than many have expected. And this is because rates lag and the full effects of them won't be felt until later on, when hopefully we'll be out in the market for a crash whenever that occurs. But good news across the board, guys. The main news today was really to do with the presidential election in Argentina. And of course, the fact that he is just so pro-Bitcoin and very Austrian in his thinking in regards to money, and Bitcoin potentially being the answer to a lot of the problems that Argentina has faced. Very interesting. We'll see. Are we going to see? I think we're going to see a trend with countries adopting Bitcoin. And I think a Bitcoin standard seemed pretty outrageous at one point, but I do think for some countries it may become exactly that. Whether it's going to be a success or not is for another debate. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. We're bullish on the crypto markets. Great news in regards to what's happening in Latin America. Good news with Santander. You know, it's kind of showing an institutional interest in providing crypto-related services and accepting them. Also, we have got a report coming out for you guys later on CoinShares, which is a exchange-traded product for the crypto space broadly in the United States. We have seen inflows last week for them for the fourth sort of week in a row, which is very positive. All things moving in the right directions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. And on that note, I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.